Some books make the cut, and some get slashed. This isn't just any other TBR game, it's a horror inspired game show. Welcome to The Final Shelf. Who will survive the season? Hi friends, and welcome back to The Final Shelf, my horror-inspired TBR game where I make every single one of my books fight it out for a chance on the final shelf. So this is actually our first official episode 1 because in the last episode, which I called episode 0, I walked through all of the different rules of the games, how it's going to be played, what I'm going to be doing, and of course what you can expect. So if you are here for the first time and you're just jumping in, you might want to go back and watch episode 0 just to be caught up and understand what is going on. But if you would like to just start out here and wing it, see if you're enjoying this content, then you can do that as well and just learn as we go, whatever works for you. So before we dive into the first book that's going to be battling it out in this episode, we have some new additions to my library. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this, that every single physical book that I own is going to be doing this final shelf process where they get rated and I either decide whether it's something I'm going to be keeping or if it's going to get slashed and end up being unhauled. And in episode 0, I walked you through every single physical book on my shelves that are currently unread because those are our potential contestants for the game, and I put them all inside of this TBR jar. However, since filming episode 0, I have purchased a few more books and have added some more slips into the jar. I go more into my recently hauled books and unboxings in my unboxing videos. They're done in ASMR style if you're into that, and you can go and watch and learn more there. So by adding those 6 books into the TBR jar, that makes our total contestant pool 91 total books. So basically, when I do my pulls from the jar, there are 91 potential titles in there that I will be pulling from my bookshelves back here. And just to give a brief explanation here, when I pull a title from my TBR jar, that book officially becomes a final shelf contestant for the episode. And basically, I read that book, share my thoughts with you, and put the book through my rating scale, which you will see here. And based on that rating scale and how many points it earns in each category will determine its star rating. And a book has to get at least 3.5 stars or 17 points in order to make it onto the final shelf. If it does not make it onto the final shelf, then the book gets slashed. So in my fall TBR, I actually pulled the very first book from my TBR jar for this episode, and that ended up being What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown. This one is about a teenage girl who is raised by her father completely off the grid in the 90s. And basically, the longer or the more time passes, the more she begins to realize that her dad's idea of the way to live life maybe isn't the best choice or the only choice, and also that he is potentially hiding some secrets. So eventually she escapes to San Francisco, right kind of as the internet age is kind of kicking off, and basically from what it sounds like, what she finds there kind of triggers her to question everything she knows about her past and who she really is. So I am very intrigued in this book. It is like a thriller-esque type mystery story. I actually got this one. It was a book of the month pick, and I decided to actually choose this one because number one, as a 90s baby, I always like visiting the 90s by story, and also because the idea of it kind of hit a little no, I don't want to say a nerve, but I kind of related to it in a way. And so I have a feeling that a lot of the content inside of this book is going to kind of mirror some of my own thoughts and feelings growing up. And I don't want to say the identical situation because I obviously haven't even read the book yet, but from the sounds of it, it's going to kind of mirror some of my own experiences. I have a feeling this is going to be very coming of age. I also have a feeling it's going to be a little like nostalgic feeling and maybe a little eerie. And of course, this teenage girl who's going to be experiencing all of these new things that she's never experienced before. I'm sure that the modern world, and what I mean by modern is modern in the 90s, is going to be quite a shock for her. So I'm definitely both excited and nervous about this one. I hope that I really, really enjoy it. So let's find out if this one ends up being slashed or getting its place on the final shelf. Before I dive into reading, let me explain really quickly what to expect from going forward. So I'm going to actually start diving into this book, and I will be coming back and sharing my thoughts as I progress through it. So I expect to give updates around the 25% mark, 50% mark, and 75% mark. And then at the end, when I've completed the book, I'll give my final thoughts, and we will put it through my ranking system to see how many points it gets. I expect, or at least my plan is, to go through 5 books from the TBR jar in this process for this episode. 5 is kind of my starting goal for each episode of the final shelf, but of course, seeing as this is the first round, we will just have to see how it goes. All right, so I have just made it to 25% in What Kind of Paradise. So Jane, I think her name is Jane. That's so weird that I just blanked on that. But we're following Jane, who just turned 17 years old. And up until this point, she has been raised purely by her father, like in a cabin in the middle of the wilderness in the woods. And it's just been her and him. And she's kind of at this point where, she just turned 17 and she has been told one specific thing from her dad since she was very little, like one particular worldview, right? And of course, it's her dad's worldview. And he is got some very passionate ideas about society. And as I mentioned, I think before, that this is based in the 90s, so right in like the very beginning of like the internet era. And so her dad is one of those people who are like very anti-internet, very anti-establishment, basically just thinks that television and media and all of that is just there to poison the minds of the people. And so that's what she's basically grown up thinking as well. But now that she's turned 17 and she's starting to kind of piece together that basically what he's been telling her may not be the whole truth or the only truth, about the world. And it all kind of started when her dad left. He goes on these runs to go get supplies. He doesn't really like take her ever with him, so she's not sure exactly where he goes and what he does when he's gone for these lengths of days. But he left for one of these trips to go get supplies or whatever it is that he does during this time. While he was gone, she kind of decided to be a little bit mischievous, break into his office that he keeps locked, and go through his stuff. And when she is digging through his drawer, she pulls out a photo, and the photo she recognizes is of her mother, who passed away years ago, like when she was 4 years old, and herself. However, it was a photo she's never seen before, and she was wondering, like, we don't have that many pictures of Mom. I don't understand why I've never seen this one, like why he hasn't shared this one with me. And then she flips the photo over and it has 2 names written on the back, but those 2 names is not her name and it's not the name of her mother. And so that kind of starts to get her to think, wait a minute, maybe there's more to my dad and the way that we're living than what I've been told. And that's kind of like where we're at now, where she is starting to just pick up these different oddities of her father's behaviors and the things that he's saying. And not only that, but like the things that he's saying, but then his actions and behaviors will like contradict that in weird ways. And she's just starting to notice that 2 and 2 are not adding up to equal 4. I'm really enjoying it right now. I was definitely right when I mentioned that a lot of the behavioral patterns are going to remind me of somebody that I knew growing up, and that's definitely true. And it's been very interesting to read about that kind of character, that kind of father-daughter dynamic. But I really am enjoying it, and I am so curious like where this is going. I don't have a lot else to say other than the fact that I'm just really enjoying it right now. The whole setup is just super intriguing to me. The fact that there's a 17-year-old girl just like in the cabin in the winter sometimes for days by herself while her father's out into town doing what he's doing, sharing his like publications. He writes like a political manifesto type zine that he like tries to give out to like different bookstores and stuff to sell. Like that's part of how he makes his money. And like despite his aversion to technology their whole lives, he actually comes back with a computer. And so she is, for the first time in her life, having access to the internet because he's bringing this computer because he wants to publish his manifesto online, and he's getting her help to do that, which again, that's one of those contradictory things. Like he's been anti the internet forever. And he's claiming, oh, well, this is different because we're gonna make the internet work for us instead of working for the internet like all the other people do, right? So she's obviously seeing this, but she's herself very curious and at taking any opportunity she can to like explore the internet and discover things, read about what's going on in the world. And of course we've got chat rooms because it's the 90s and early internet days, and so she's been spending some time in chat rooms and actually talking to other humans, which is something she's very rarely ever had the opportunity to do. Okay, so I have officially finished What Kind of Paradise, and let's see whether it is going to be shelved on our final shelf or if it is going to be slashed. So in my last update, I believe I was telling you, it was kind of wild to me, that this was such a good reflection of some of the ways like emotional manipulation and being raised by like somebody with extreme viewpoints who is really trying to like push you to also believe in similar like ways. It was just really interesting for me to read from that point of view. After we got past 50%, the plot started to change a little bit. I think I mentioned that it was becoming a lot more of her just kind of like discovering herself, trying to get on her feet now that she's, an adult and out into the real world with like no pre-existing knowledge of like how it all works. And then it was that for a little while. We got some bits of romance without it actually being like a romance, which I appreciated. And then at the end, we kind of circled back to the stuff that was going on in the beginning to wrap it up. And I think it was all wrapped up really nicely. I don't want to give too much away because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I did enjoy the direction that this went. I felt a lot for our main character and some of the decisions she had to make. And some of the personal growth she had to go through in just a short amount of time in order to get us to where this book ended. And so I really did appreciate that character journey for her. So yeah, What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown was a good time. But let's see how the ratings are going to fall. So I just pulled up my notes here. I'm going to rate The Hook a 5 out of 5. I really thought that it had a strong opening. I was immediately pulled into the story, immediately like relating with the main character and her situation. translation. The writing, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5. It was good, but it wasn't like extraordinary or mind-blowing, even though there were some really like emotional lines in here that really had me in my feelings. A 5 out of 5 for characters. I'm gonna give the atmosphere 2 out of 5. This was something that I thought was done really, really well in the beginning of the book, but then once we started to transition from like out of that rural setting and more into the like city of San Francisco, I felt like that much of a change for that character wasn't like as shocking to somebody who had never been exposed to that kind of stuff should have been. Like I feel like there should have been more focus on that part of the story, since it was such a huge jump from going from seclusion into literally San Francisco city in the 90s. But once she got into the city, it kind of felt like all of that sort of atmosphere that was done really well in the beginning just wasn't done as well for the remainder of the book. And I would have liked to explore that aspect a little bit more. So I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 there. And for impact, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 because, yeah, I'm going to remember this. It has a lot of points in there that make you think like about loyalty and about technology and about, you know, things that are sensitive topics even today in 2025 that were concerns in the 90s, like AI and, you know, how much power we're giving technology over like running the day-to-day world. What is that fine line behind like passion over ideas and what you believe and standing up for what you believe and just being unhinged, right? This story definitely had a specific character who teetered that line pretty in an extreme way. And then of course our main character was kind of doing that own inner battle inside of herself as well, and I found that to be really thought-provoking. So that leaves this book at a 4 stars, which means that What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown, our very first final shelf contendant, actually gets to make it onto the final shelf. Yay! Okay, so you know what that means. Now that we have finished this book up, it's time to draw our next choice out of the jar here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull our next contendant. Okay, we've got a mint one. Let's see. See that? Oh, Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is exciting. I have actually been I wanted to start reading this either in the fall or in the winter of this year for sure. And so I'm so excited that I actually pulled that. Let me go grab them actually. Okay, so I actually have like these really beautiful special editions of all 3 books that have been released in this Emily Wilde series. And so I have been itching to dive into these. Like, look how pretty. Hold on. And I've just heard so much about this series that I'm so excited to give it a read. See, so beautiful. However, I was planning, because it has, like, if you look at the artwork, super wintry, like, type vibes going on here. So I was planning on holding it out for winter, but this was obviously a nudge from the universe to go ahead and dive in. So I'm really excited to actually get into this one. Hello, so I have just hit the 50% mark in Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies today. I have mostly been listening to the audiobook version of this story so that I'm not causing any damage to this beautiful special edition copy that I have here. And that the audiobook is so good. Like the production of the audiobook, the narrator who does Emily's voice is so good, and I feel like this story has kind of like a light comedic tone to it in certain areas that I think the narrator pulls off really well, on top of being able to be true to Emily's personality. She's kind of, she's an academic. She's kind of dry. She's kind of socially reclusive. And so I'm really enjoying the audiobook. Let me just say that. And then to further move on into what I'm enjoying about this story. First of all, Emily and Wendell. Wendell is the associate from her college who followed her to this town, to this village to help her develop, the rest of the content she needs for her book, as part of the deal, in helping him. But anyways, Emily and Wendell's relationship, their dynamic, I am loving. I'm absolutely loving the play of personalities between the two and the dynamics of how they communicate and the ways in which they're working together in various ways, both with the villagers and the new culture that they're having to get used to in this village, as well as on the academic side. It's all very interesting, and I'm very much so enjoying it. This book, one thing that I am also kind of loving is that I have been reading a lot of dark academia books recently, as that was one of my goals for the fall. So I have read at least at this point 3. I did the first chapters of many, if you want to go and watch the first chapter taste test that I did on dark academia books. And then I later did a dark academia vlog where I was reading a couple dark academia books. And I've also read maybe one, I know for sure at least one outside of that vlog this season. With that said, this book, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, is also academic, but not dark academic. So I like that I'm kind of keeping similar themes, but in a different lens, in a different setup, with wholly different vibes. And I'm actually really, really enjoying this and the lightness of it. I don't want to call this a cozy fantasy or a cozy academic fantasy, because I don't feel like cozy is the right word. I'm sure there's got to be another word to describe this kind of book, but I'm having difficulty placing it because it's cozy in some senses, but also there are stakes, there is violence, there are dark aspects, as there oftentimes are when we're talking about folklore and mischievous type fae and things like that. So I think that while this is cozy in a way, I wouldn't say it's purely cozy, lighthearted. I wouldn't call it necessarily that, but with the type of book that this is, on the more lighter type of academia type story, I'm also really enjoying the fact that compared to many of the other dark academia stories that I've been reading this fall, this book is much more heavily reliant or leaning into the academia part of academia as a genre. Something I noticed in a lot of the dark academia books that I was reading is that it's taking place like on an academic campus, you know, an academic environment, but that all kind of falls to the backdrop mostly, to focus more on whatever the characters are going through, whatever the plot is, whatever the horror is, if it's like a horror dark academia, like Don't Let the Forest In was. But this one, all like in contrast to that, leans very heavy into the academia aspect. Like Emily Wilde is a true academic. Like she works for a college. She's very motivated to finish this book that she's writing that is very academic in focus. And she's a very intelligent woman. And so it leans much more heavily into that academia aspect, which I'm actually finding really refreshing and I'm actually really enjoying. And I love the snippets of like fairy type folklore that we're getting. So this is historical, as I think I mentioned before, and it's kind of based in like an alternate history of historical Europe. And so a lot of the fairies that we're meeting are drawn from the folklore of that specific area. And so I'm enjoying like getting the snippets of the different types. I don't want to say the different species, but the different kinds of fairies, what they're like, what their goals are, how they interact with humans, you know, what the humans in this story like currently know about them, what Emily is learning about them. It's all very interesting to me and I'm having a really, really good time. And I think that this is going to be quite a high rated book for me if it keeps going in the path that it's going. Of course, I'm only 50% through, but I am loving it and I'm having a really good time. So this was once again a really good pull for me, and I can't wait to keep reading through it and seeing how, like, which direction the plot is going to go, because this book does have a plot that I find that a lot of cozy fantasy, like I said, why I didn't want to call it like pure cozy fantasy, because a lot of times I find that cozy fantasy is more like day-to-day lives of the people. This has an actual plot that we're following and I'm really intrigued into where that's going to go and where it's going to lead Emily and also Wendell, because where Emily goes, I'm learning that Wendell also goes. I also really like after looking back at this book, how the scenes depicted in the, let me just show you, like in the inside of the cover here are like from actual scenes in the story. So like I literally just recently read this particular scene here. So now I'm able to like get a picture of the scene I just read in this beautiful artwork, and I really, really love that. So we've got Emily, we've got Wendell, and that is her dog, Shadow, and I love it. I love it. I think the artwork is beautiful. The characters I actually find in this artwork are very similar to how I imagined them in my head. Here's the one on the back. Beautiful. Love it. I actually also have already read this scene as well. I know exactly what is going on here. Although I have to say this, I'm not going to give away who or what it is, but this little critter here isn't quite what I imagined. But anyways, I love it. Definitely looking forward to reading more of this. I finished Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies and I absolutely loved it. I had such a good time. The audiobook quality was amazing, which is where I did the majority of the reading experience. I also really loved the character growth. That's something that I wanted to mention here really quick. I really loved Emily's character arc, like over the entire story and the growth that she kind of went through. I like that it was subtle, but also impactful in a subtle way, and I really enjoyed that. I don't have a ton of time because I have got some things that I've got to get done today. So while I could ramble on about this book probably for a good 30 minutes because I loved it so much. I'm going to leave you with these little short notes here, and I'm going to go ahead and just do the scoring system so that I can go ahead and pull my next read from the jar, because I'm going to be out of the house for a couple days and I just want to make sure that I know what I'm bringing with me to read. So sorry for being a little brief here. But let's go ahead and put Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies through the scoring system. So for the hook, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. I absolutely was so excited to dive into this book, and the first few chapters really like lived up to that excitement. I knew just by reading the first couple of chapters that I was going to be something like that. The writing was good, so good that I knew I was going to have like a really entertaining experience. I related immediately to Emily's character. I loved the little bit of humor that the author like threw in there through the characters' personalities, and of course academia and folklore are both something that I really love, and so having those put together in this kind of book just really hit for me. And so the hook was solid, 5 out of 5. The writing was also 5 out of 5. I think that Heather Fawcett's writing is so easily readable but also stimulating enough that it doesn't feel boring, which is something that I really liked. Like I said, I liked how she kind of wove in the humor. I liked the hodgepodge of this genre where, like I was talking earlier, like it's not exactly cozy fantasy, but it's on the cozier side, while there are things going on also though that would knock it kind of clearly out of cozy territory. There's things I don't want to share that happen in the book because it would be a spoiler. But there's some threads of darker type things that go on within the story without being like an all-out like fantasy, bloody, war-filled, dark type of fantasy novel. So 5 out of 5 in writing. For the characters, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. The characters were my favorite part of the story, and that's crazy to say because that's oftentimes not my experience with reading books. Like usually it does depend on the genre, but usually I'm not somebody who feels like overly like connected or like engaged with a specific character. But both of our main characters here, I like literally loved. I love their personality. I love the dynamic and the play between the two. And I also liked all of the side characters. Like I think that the characterization that the author did here was done really well, and it was done in a way that's making me really excited to want to read. Like I could jump right now into book 2. I actually have it on my shelf, and book 3. And I'm very tempted to do that, but I'm showing a little bit of restraint here because I know I want to get in another book from the jar first. So, yes, characterization, 5 out of 5. For the atmosphere, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. And the reason why it's not a 5, despite me loving the book so well, let me back up a little bit. What are the things that it did really well? I loved the snowy atmosphere. It's currently fall right now, and we are, it's like the very beginning of like cool type days, and as a seasonal reader I usually like to fit my readings into like the season that I'm in if I can, and so this one was a little premature with being in like a super wintry landscape, snow and cold, and just an overall wintry vibe going on in this book, where the fae themselves are pulled like from like winter as a season when it comes to like their characteristics and like their lore and things like that. So it was a very wintry read, but I think that that part of this was done really well. The winter atmosphere, the small village in like a northern European type setting was done really, really well, and it was that aspect of the story was super cozy, while also highlighting a lot of the brutality of winter and just how beautiful it is while also being very hard to deal with depending on the circumstances. But that was done really well. The one thing that is keeping me from giving a 5 out of 5 when it comes to atmosphere is this is supposed to be set in like the early 1900s. This is definitely set in like a parallel world from ours. So basically everything is the same except the fact that there are fae and fairies like within the world, like for sure, that are being studied by academics and stuff. But it's set in like the early 1900s. I'm sure it probably says a year. And of course the trash. The trash is being picked up right now, so hold for a minute. Okay, they're done. But 1909, I found it. So this is set in the year 1909. And knowing that, like that fact is stated, and so we know that going in. However, I feel that despite the obvious lack of technology, that this book could have been set now, like with the way that people talk to each other and the interactions that happen and the different like character dynamics, and just the fact that Emily Wilde is supposed to be a professor at Cambridge and she's a woman, and I feel like in 1909 that's very unlikely. Like women didn't oftentimes have, or very rarely did they hold any type of like positions of power back in 1909, especially in British society. And so that kind of irked me a little bit because I don't mind it being set in 1909, but I would have liked more references maybe to the time to kind of ground us in that more than just saying, hey, this is 1909. So that part of it is why I'm not giving it 5 out of 5 stars, or 5 out of 5 points. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Why I'm not giving the atmosphere rating 5 out of 5. Because I felt like the atmosphere of like the early 1900s could have been done better to solidify that a little bit more in my mind, because I honestly forgot, like I got like 75% in before I remembered, hey wait, isn't this supposed to be in like early 1900s? And it just didn't feel like that. So yeah, 4 out of 5 there for atmosphere. And then what's next? Impact. So for impact, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because I think that this is absolutely one of my favorite like non-horror type books that I have read in a long time. I was smirking and giggling reading it. I really, really like both Emily and Wendell. And they're definitely like one of my new favorite character duos that I'm excited to revisit in the next few books. So that adds up to being 24 out of 25 points for Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. However, I am going to give it a bonus point. I mentioned in the rules, if you go back and watch the video I did about the rules of the final shelf, that every now and then, if I want, I can give out a bonus point to a book for various things. And for this book, I am going to give a bonus point for 2 reasons. So I'm going to give bonus point 1 for how absolutely beautiful this edition is that I have, and the artwork inside of it. I've already shown it off a few times, but literally this is so pretty. Like I find myself just looking at it because the art, right? The art, I love it. Very well done. And I love the artwork that is inside that I've already shown, of like the different scene depictions. I love it so much. So that's part of the reason why I'm giving it a bonus point. And the other part is because the audiobook is so well done. As I mentioned, I spent the majority of my time with this book through the audiobook. And I thought that the narrators, because there are two, there's one for Emily and there's one for Wendell, and I thought they were just so good. And even though this book is almost wholly narrated from the point of view of Emily, we get a few tidbit chapters in there from Wendell, and he does have his own narrator to do his voice. But something that I really liked was that even though we were hearing Wendell from the narrator of Emily and Wendell from the point of view of Wendell, and the narrators were different for that I very easily knew, like, they did so well that as soon as Wendell started talking in the audiobook from his voice, I knew exactly who it was. The production and the narration was just really, really good, making the experience of the audiobook that much better. And I'm hoping, since we got tidbits of Wendell in this one, I'm actually hoping that we get more of that in books 2 and 3, and maybe he will get some more of his own chapters from his point of view, because I did really enjoy those, especially with the audiobook. So bonus point for that, which actually brings the score for Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies to 25 out of 25 points, which of course is 5 stars. So another 5-star read here for this book, and I'm so excited that I pulled it, because it was, like I said, just what I needed after reading a bunch of like dark academia books while staying well inside of that folklore and academia setting, but on a little lighter note. So that means that this book has earned its place on the final shelf. So I said I wasn't going to talk for like 30 minutes, and here I am still just rambling on. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull our next choice from the TBR jar. Let's see, I honestly don't know what I'm in the mood for after this. I don't know, I'm guessing I could be happy with just about anything. I don't know, it is still spooky season, so maybe I'm hoping for a horror, which will be a purple slip of paper. But really, I'm not like against per se anything, like off the top of my mind. So let's grab one and let's see. Oh, I dropped it. It is this peach color, which I cannot remember what peach is, so let's open it up and see. Let's see. There it goes. What does that say? Oh. Pretty Little Liars by Sarah Shepard. Okay. So not horror. That means that peach must be mystery or thriller. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to memorize what they are. So purple is horror. Like the mint color is fantasy. Peach must be mystery thriller. And I think that lime green, like this lime green type color, I think that's like romance and anything else, if I can remember. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look. It is laid out in the rules video if you want to go and watch that. But okay, not a horror. Pretty Little Liars. It's an older book, and I actually watched the series of this book in like years back to like there's like a ton of seasons of this. It just kept going on and on and on and on, and I lost interest, but I really did love it for like the first few seasons, which kind of, when I saw the book, I was like, I'm gonna get that because I enjoyed it. Maybe the books are better. The books are always better, right? But I do think it's YA. You know what? Let me just go grab it. Okay, so here it is. Yeah, I think it is a young adult novel. If you are unaware of Pretty Little Liars, you've never seen the TV show, I can't tell you how close this is to it. Obviously, I haven't read it yet. But it says, everyone has something to hide, especially high school juniors, Spencer, Aria, Emily, and Hannah. Spencer covets her sister's boyfriend. Arya's fantasizing about her English teacher. Emily's kissing more than one person. Hannah is resorting to dangerous methods to stay beautiful. But they've all kept an even bigger secret since their friend Allison vanished. Basically, what I do know about this from watching the show years back, probably maybe like 5 or 6 years ago now, these 4 girls are in high school, and they used to be like a friend group of 5, and kind of like at the center of their friend group was this girl named Allison, and one night during a sleepover, she basically disappears. She vanishes. She's thought to be dead because she's never found, and that kind of breaks their friend group apart, and they no longer really interact with each other, and then maybe like a year later or something like that, some time passes, and then all of a sudden the 4 girls start getting like messages from a person named, or from an anonymous person who labels their messages A. And that could mean like A for anonymous, A for Allison, they don't know, but this person seems to know a lot of their secrets that they're hiding, and it kind of just kicks off like a big mystery. So yeah, I don't know how the TV show ends, and I don't know how close this is to the TV show, but I guess this is what I'm going to be reading, and I will update you as we go. Okay guys, we officially have our first DNF. This is going to be a soft DNF. It is now like a week later. Sorry that my hair is wet, just got out of the shower, but I wanted to go ahead and do this. Yeah, I have tried to read this for the entire week, like multiple times, sit down, and I have not gotten through I don't think I've even gotten to chapter 3. I just am not feeling it. First off, at where I'm at in my life, I'm past the point. You wanna come say hi? Sorry, Wednesday wanted to say hi. But yeah, at this point in my life, I don't really read much YA, and when I do, I have to be like in the right mood. The thing is, I've kind of looked forward to reading this for a few years. As I mentioned, I've watched the series through like season 7, and I heard that the books were really entertaining, really nostalgic, especially for people who like grew up in the timeline, like in the time of when this is set. And it's filled with like, of course, tons of toxicity, you know, friend group drama, you know, thriller aspects. I just simply could not get into it. It wasn't engaging enough. The dialogue just wasn't there. So I'm not ready to give up on this yet, because I think maybe when I'm in a different reading mood or a different reading stage, that maybe this will be better for me, more of a hit with me, depending on what I'm feeling. So per the rules of the final shelf, I have the paper that I pulled for this. I'm just gonna fold it back up and put it right on back in the jar so that it gets another opportunity later when maybe I'm in the right headspace to read this. Because yeah, it's been a week and I cannot get through it. It's making me want to like put off reading because it's not what I'm feeling. So yeah, softy enough for this one. So here we go. I'm gonna put it back in the jar, and then we are gonna go ahead and pull our next read, and we'll just put you right back there. I don't know what I'm feeling. Actually, I do. I know exactly what I'm feeling. It's literally Halloween today. Today is Halloween, and I am like hardcore in spooky mode. I want a horror. I want a creepy horror. Hopefully, like, preferably a super fast-paced horror. So yeah, that means that we're hoping for a purple piece of paper, because purple is horror. So that's what I'm hoping for. Let's see. That is not purple. Okay, this is mint. Mint is fantasy, I think. Let's see. Okay, The Wren and the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. Let me go get it. Also, I'm so sorry if you hear my dryer in the background. I just remembered that it's on while I'm filming this, and sometimes it can screech like a banshee. So sorry if you heard that, but let me go get this book. Okay, got it. So this is a pretty good-sized fantasy book, I believe. Is it a romantasy? I think it is a romantasy. Also, I believe from my memory that this one might be like a Beauty and the Beast retelling of a sort. I feel like that's what I remember. Let's see. Can you love the dark when you know what hides it? When you know what it hides. Some things aren't supposed to exist outside of our imagination. 13 years ago, monsters emerged from the shadows and plunged Kyrce's world into a cataclysmic war of near total destruction. The New York City she knew so well collapsed practically overnight. Okay. So maybe more like an urban fantasy. Not what I was thinking. I might have this confused with something else. But now that makes sense more. It's more like a is it contemporary? I don't know, but you can see big city, New York. Okay. So in the wake of that carnage, the monster treaty was signed, a truce of sorts. But tonight, Kyrce, a gifted and fearless thief, will break that treaty. She'll enter the Holly Library, not knowing it's the home of a monster. He's charming, quietly alluring, terrifying, but he knows talent when he sees it. It's just a matter of finding her price. Now she's locked in a dangerous bargain with a creature unlike any other. She'll sacrifice her freedom. She'll offer her skills. Together they'll put their own futures at risk. But he's been playing a game across centuries, and once she joins in, there will be no escape. Okay, so maybe it actually is kind of like a Beauty and the Beast type retelling. Maybe I did have that right. I was just confused on the setting. But yeah, so not quite what I was hoping for. But it sounds intriguing. It sounds interesting. So yeah, this will be my next read. I have made it to 25% in the Wren and the Holly Library, or the Wren in the Holly Library, and I'm feeling a little conflicted. So this is kind of like what I was thinking. Sorry, this is highly reflective and it keeps catching my light. But last time I talked to you, when I was reading like the description, I was like, okay, so maybe this is like more of an urban fantasy versus like a high fantasy or some other kind of like otherworldly fantasy. And that is absolutely true. This is more of like a kind of urban dystopian type fantasy. I don't know if dystopian is really the word, but this book is based after a cataclysmic event happened where monsters basically came and was like, hey, we exist. And there was like years of conflict between monsters and humans, and there was this big downfall of society. There was this big war that happened between them that they call the Monster War. And then after the Monster War, after so long having this war, they signed what was called the Monster Treaty to kind of like dictate peace between them. And so now monsters and humans are living together in what is left of society after all of that has gone down. So we're following Kyrce, who is a thief, and basically she takes this job that leads her to this mansion that she breaks into with the aim to steal something from this house. She's really good at what she does. However, she's caught by the owner of the house, who is this mysterious figure that basically through their interactions, he's very curious how she ended up in his house, because apparently this person has magic, which shocks Kierce because for so long the thing that has been taught is that yes, monsters exist but not magic, and she said that like 50 times, monsters not magic. So the fact that this man is claiming he has magic is confusing to her and shocking. But not only does he say, hey, this house was magically warded against intruders, how are you able to break through those wards? Like, like how you must have some kind of magic or something going on. And basically through this interaction between them, he decides he wants to utilize whatever skills she may have that allowed her to break his wards to go and then steal something for him. And she is like, I'll think about it, right? So she goes back home. When she's home, she lives with like these two friends of hers, and their home is like invaded. So basically, somebody wasn't happy that she was seen around this man or coming out of this man's house, and so they're after her. And basically put her and her friends on the run. We have met the friends for like 5 whole minutes, and she's back at the house now where I'm at, and basically has agreed to do this job for this mysterious man. His name is Graves, and she's going to, steal this thing for him for a whole lot of money, and in return, he's like, okay, that's a deal, but there's certain rules to us working together. Number 1, you have to stay here in my house, and you have to go through this specific training program that I'm putting together for you so that you can be, like 100% ready to go do this job when the time comes. So things like combat, reading specific books that he's telling her to from his home library, and also magic training will be coming. That hasn't started yet, but he said that's going to be part of it. And so we're just now in the very beginning of like her being there and starting all these different rules that he's put in place for this situation that they're in. And it's an interesting enough idea. I am not like a big fan of the writing style. It's just not very engaging for me. It reminds me a lot of like the urban fantasy type writing that was really popular in maybe like the 2010s era. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but a lot of the writing kind of just feels simplistic. It feels not very like sophisticated. I'm trying to explain how it makes me feel. A lot of it actually, like the main character's personality, her inner thoughts, the way that she speaks, comes off as a little bit cringeworthy to me. Like I find myself going, okay. But with that said, it's not like a bad idea. I am interested enough in the plot. It's just not, it hasn't like hooked me in, right? I actually kind of I know that this is going to be a romance just from like the description and some other like reviews that I've seen, that this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling like I thought. And there's going to be a romance, and I'm guessing it's going to be between Kierce and this mysterious guy, Graves. And I don't see that. I don't know. Maybe, I think I've kind of done that to myself because I am reading physical, but also listening to the audiobook. I went ahead and grabbed the audiobook, so I'm hopping between physical and audiobook. And in the audiobook, the narrator makes Graves sound like he is an ancient old man. Like, he sounds so old. And of course, Kierce, she's in like her 20s or whatever, but something about the way the narrator depicts the character of Graves not making me feel like these two should be romantically inclined in any way. I don't know. Maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe it wouldn't come off that way if I was reading it solely physical and I wasn't having that depiction of him through the audiobook. And maybe it'll change and get better as we go. Right now, it's kind of giving me the ick. And it's not overly even romantic. There's kind of just like foreshadowing of romance at this point where Kyrst has just had random little sayings going on about like how striking his appearance is and things like that. And I don't know, I'm not feeling that. I'm not getting it. So yeah, the book is okay. I think that it's interesting. Like the idea itself is interesting, and I am a sucker for anything fantasy retelling. I tend to really like those. And this is, a kind of unique angle at that for Beauty and the Beast, particularly. But let's see, I'm trying to put my thoughts together here. There's just something missing from the storytelling angle, I think. I'm not... I'm seeing the beats, like where it's obviously doing that fairy tale retelling of the Beauty and the Beast story. I'm seeing the characters and the roles of who they're supposed to represent, like paralleling Beauty and the Beast. And that's all cool and intriguing. But then we have the writing style, which I'm just not liking. We have this character, Kyrst. I'm going to be honest, I don't jive with her. She's kind of annoying to listen to. Like her inner monologue. She keeps saying it's kind of the whole thing of her taking this job is because she wants to basically guarantee the safety of her two best friends that she's living with, who she's now, unintentionally put in danger through her actions with taking, these dangerous jobs. And now they're in hiding, and she's saying a lot of, I'm doing this to protect them, I would do anything to protect them, but we saw them all of 5 minutes, and so while she's telling us that's how she feels, we didn't get the character build up there. We didn't get any significant interactions between those people and Kyrst to make me, the reader, care, right? So I don't care when she's talking about that, about these people and their safety. I don't know them, and from what interactions we have had between Kyrst and them, there was no significant relationship building, if that makes sense. So I guess the stakes in this for me don't feel as impactful for why she's making this decision, why she's making the decision that she is, and why she is dedicating herself to this job that's supposed to be extremely dangerous and having to follow all of these rules by this strange man that she just met who's telling her what she can and can't do, and she's choosing to do that. The motivation just isn't there for me. And then pair that, like I said, with just the simplistic style of writing, and it just leaves something to be desired. I think that the idea of this can still be really, really interesting and intriguing if that changes. There's just something that's leaving me from really, truly enjoying this. So at 25% in, I am still here giving it a shot. It's not my favorite read ever. I'm not particularly loving it. I'm kind of just reading it to... I don't want to say I'm reading it to read it at this point, because that's not really what it is. I'm reading it hoping it gets better, if that makes sense. I'm reading it really hoping that it gets better. I'm hoping that as we get a little bit deeper into the plot, maybe the issues that I'm having won't be so glaring. Hopefully that will be more interesting as she begins to learn more about her history and about this man and how they may or may not at all be connected or connect, somehow later on in the future. I'm hoping that if these two do truly end up romancing it out, that it doesn't feel so icky to me. Like, I'm hoping we get more character development with him, because right now he's just super standoffish. He feels like literally ancient. Like, he's made comments like, I've lived for so long. The narrator makes him sound like a legit old man. So hopefully that improves. We get more character development between the two of them, and it doesn't just like, it's not one of those books that, you know, they're strangers and then all of a sudden they're super duper like in love and we're getting like smut and romance. That's not what I want. So hopefully we get some character development between these two, and also hopefully as we go, the stakes will make more sense for me, and the emotional impact it has on like me, the reader, will grow. And if it can do those things and the plot stays intriguing, then this might very well turn out to be an okay read. However, if it doesn't, I feel like I'm gonna end up losing interest. I'm gonna feel like, you know, like I'm just not caring at all, because it's just leaving a lot to be desired. So we will see. I'm going to keep on reading. I'm going to get further into it, and I will update you as I'm further along. Okay, so I have finished The Wren in the Holly Library, and it kind of went as I expected. I didn't love it. It didn't get better from the last time that we spoke. I can't remember exactly what I said last time I recorded, but I do remember saying that it had potential if things were to improve in certain areas. However, I found that as it went, as the story progressed, those things just never actually improved. So this felt like a very mid, kind of unsatisfying read for me. Basically, I just didn't like, I guess I was going in this hoping that the heist part was going to be a lot more heisty. I tend to like kind of high action heist type stories, and that's kind of how this book was pitched in a way, among other things. But the heist never really felt like it was that huge of part of the plot. Like, they kept doing and focusing on everything else, it felt like, except for the heist. And I don't know. I just didn't find what they were focusing on to be particularly interesting or intriguing or exciting in really any way. I really disliked our main character. I found the writing style to be kind of just like plain lackluster. Like, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, that's for sure. This was not the worst thing I've ever read. I've definitely read worse books. I just didn't particularly enjoy the experience. It was an okay time, but nothing stood out to me. I'm not probably going to remember this in a month. Nothing just stood out. So let's go ahead and rank this up against the final shelf rating system. So I am going to say, for the hook, I'm giving it a 2 out of 5. Mainly that's just because I didn't 100% know what I was going into with this story at the beginning. I knew that it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and then I learned that it's set in like a contemporary New York. Not really contemporary, because it's after this monster war has kind of ravaged society, but in New York, so it wasn't like a secondary fantasy world. And I thought that was pretty intriguing, like the history behind monsters coming out. I was kind of comparing it to, in my brain, a lot of like the urban fantasy type fiction that is of course still popular now, and books are still being released now. I'm actually seeing like a little bit of resurgence of more urban type fantasy and traditional publishing the past year or so than I have in the past 10 years. But I'm thinking like 10 years ago, where urban fantasy was very, very popular, and you know, even like 15 years ago, that was kind of like the big thing in traditional publishing. And so a lot of those books, that's where I kind of slated this book in my mind after I learned that it was going to be like a contemporary type setting, an urban city type setting. And I thought it was kind of intriguing. I enjoyed reading urban fantasy back in the day. I haven't read much of it recently, but I was a little bit excited to kind of revisit a contemporary-esque or modern semi-monster dystopian type world. And of course, with the heist included and it being a Beauty and the Beast inspired slash retelling, I had high hopes for it. Like, I was definitely intrigued and ready to give it a try, hoping that I would like it. So then when I first started the first couple of chapters and I realized that I just didn't like the writing style, and I didn't seem to particularly love the setup, my hopes kind of like just fell a little bit. So yeah, 2 out of 5 for the hook. This was very, I don't know, the dialogue in this story was very flat. It wasn't engaging or intriguing in any way to me. Of course, this is all opinions. This could very well still be somebody's favorite book out there, and that's fine, but we all have opinions. My opinion is that I just didn't really love the writing style in this. I found her writing to be really info dumpy. So like whenever we would meet like a new character or like go to a new like environment or setting, the author would introduce this place or person, but then immediately give like paragraphs long backstory on how this person was involved in like the monster war or what they've been doing since. So it was like immediately telling us everything about this person or place that we need to know. Instead of like weaving those details in kind of naturally, it just felt very info dumpy to me. There was a lot of telling. I felt like the author didn't really let us come to our own conclusions. It was the kind of writing where she's like telling you what everybody is thinking and feeling, what everybody is doing, what literally everything means, instead of letting us kind of like sit with that in our head and come to our own conclusions on what that means for a particular character or things like that. Just basically the emotional beats in the story never really hit for me. I like the climax and the low points for the characters, they all just felt kind of mid for me. Like I was not emotionally intrigued, emotionally wrapped up in the characters or really their situation. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 for writing for me. Again, not the worst writing in the world. Like I don't think she's a bad writer. I think the style just isn't particularly for me. And so yeah, 2 out of 5 there. When it comes to characters, I'm also giving it a 2 out of 5. I did not like our protagonist. I did not like our love interest. I did not like them together. I thought they had absolutely no chemistry. I do not think that the characters had any chemistry together except in the bedroom, and so it didn't make sense to me why they were romantically involved, like in any way. They just did not have chemistry to me. I didn't understand why they liked each other. And the smut in this was super cringeworthy. In order for me to like really enjoy romantic scenes or smut in any way, I have to be really emotionally invested in these characters and their relationships. So the smut in here, I found myself just kind of cringing when I was reading it. I didn't want to hear it because I didn't like necessarily that it was happening. Like I didn't care. So I like partway through the first smut scene, I think there was only 2 in this book. Partway through the first one, I just kind of skipped through it, and as soon as the next one came up, I just skipped ahead. I didn't care. I was not emotionally invested. I didn't find their chemistry to be very good. Then outside of the 2 main characters, like all of the other like supporting characters were also very flat in my mind. There was one that I found to be the most intriguing, but then we didn't really dig into that anymore. It was still kind of surface level, And I have a feeling maybe we'll explore this particular character in like a sequel of this, but I'm not going to be reading a sequel of this, so it doesn't really matter. The two best friends that I said kind of fell into the background. Like, she talked about them a lot, but there was no actual on-page relationship building. Those two did end up coming back into the story and playing more of a role, but it was super, like, there was no build up to it. The emotional, I think, reaction that the author was trying to pull off with those scenes didn't hit for me because there was no pre-existing relationship building between those characters, like, on page for me. And so again, that just kind of fell flat for me. So when it comes to characters, I am going to give it a 2 out of 5. Atmosphere, again, 2 out of 5. I was, like I said, I was intrigued to see like a monster torn, like, New York City that's now been separated into different districts by like which group of monsters or humans is currently controlling it. The magic system in this book was interesting, I guess you could say, but not exciting. There was parts of it that I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then most of it was just kind of mid. There was like no magic training. There was like one scene of magic training, and she was supposed to be trying to like hone her powers for this, big heist or whatever. And that was never a focus. It was wild that was supposed to be the plot, but like we barely just scratched the surface on any of that. So again, my emotional like tie into the stakes and into this process was just not strong. So I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 for atmosphere. Again, interesting idea, interesting setup, but I just don't think it was executed very well. And then for impact, I'm giving this a 1. I'm not gonna remember this. I'm not gonna look back on this fondly. None of the ideas talked about in this book are gonna like stick with me. There were definitely some conversations on trauma and how that affects relationships and how that just how that affects a person moving forward in their life, coming out of like very traumatic experiences and abuse with people you're supposed to trust. But again, I just don't find that it hit very hard for me. I think those messages are very valid, and I'm glad the author, tried to include something substantial like that in the story. So I appreciate that. It just didn't really hit for me. So I'm giving impact 1. And so for the total tally up for the Wren and the Holly Library, that is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. That's 9 points out of 25 total, which is like a 2-star on our rating scale. And so we have finally got our first book in this first episode of The Final Shelf that is being slashed. I'm not going to be adding the Wren and the Holly Library to my bookshelf. It is immediately going to go into my unhaul pile. Hopefully that means that this can move on to somebody else who it is better suited for, who is going to be able to enjoy it more than I would. I would say that this is probably a book a teenager would really enjoy. You could remove the smut scenes. Like, if the smut scenes were not in here, this is a very like textbook kind of YA story, I think, like urban fantasy type story. So while I would say I'd love to let my daughter, who's 14, like read this and give it a chance, because the author did insert those smut scenes into this, that eliminates that as an option. So hopefully I can donate this or rehome this with somebody who it's better fitted for and that they will enjoy. But that does mean, unfortunately, this book is slashed and it is not going on my final shelf. Okay, so that means it's time to pull the final shelf contendant for this episode. I don't know what I'm in the mood for. I really don't know what I'm in the mood for, to be fair. I've had a lot of mid-reads recently. Like the past 2 weeks, I felt like I was coming down on a high of like enjoying and loving like every book that I was reading, and then all of a sudden I hit this point where like everything has been super meh. Like I'm not loving anything. So I guess all I can say is what I'm hoping for is something that is a really hard hitter for me. I want to enjoy something. I want to just have a good time again, you know? So let's see what we get. Okay, we have Mint. Oh, Mint is fantasy again, I think. Let's see. There it is. Can you see that? Let's see. Oh, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. Okay, so yeah, this is a fantasy, and if I'm correct, this is like a chunker fantasy. Let me go get it. Yeah, she big. Okay, so When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I actually have heard good things about this book actually from a lot of the different like booktubers that I follow and stuff like that. So that is good news. Hopefully that means that it's something I'm gonna really enjoy as well. I did get this at Barnes and Noble, buy one get one 50% off sale, and they have an ugly, I hate that so much. Why are you putting stickers on the cover of a book? I really hate that. But okay. Yeah, so this one, I can't remember off the top of my head what it is supposed to be about, like what the plot is. So it says an assassin for the rebellion group Fjorda Ath. Listen, fantasy pronunciations, they sound good in my head. I try to say them. We're gonna move on. Okay. Anyways, Rave's job is to complete orders and never get caught. When a rival bounty hunter turns her world upside down, blood spills, heart breaks, and Rave finds herself imprisoned by the Guild of Nobles, a group of powerful fae who turn her into a political statement. Crushed by the loss of his great love, Khan Vagor took the head of a king and donned its melting crown. Now on a tireless quest to quell the never-ebbing ache in his chest, a clue lures him into the capital's high-security prison where he stumbles upon the imprisoned Rave. Echoes of the past race between them. There's more to their story than meets the eye, and some truths are too poisonous to swallow. Okay, so that sounds interesting. I think it is a romantasy. It's got a map in the front, which I like. Is it a map? It is a map. Okay, so it's got a map. Yeah. Some pretty artwork on the inside title page. So yeah, I guess I am ready to dive into this. Again, I've heard good things. I like when I can sink into a really good fantasy, and this one seems to be intricate by the look of it. Like it's got its own, what do they call this? Index or glossary. Its own glossary here. Which tells me that this is probably like a really well built or well built out high fantasy world, which tends to work with me again in certain situations. So yeah, I was not prepared to dive into a chunker like this, but you know what? Maybe it's just what I need. I have made it to the almost 50% mark in When the Moon Hatched, and I was not prepared for like how dark this book gets in the beginning. We are introduced to the main character where she seems to be indebted to somebody else, like she's working under this person who kind of like assigns her specific jobs or something like that, was the vibes that I was getting. But also she has a mission out to basically kill all of the like evil, corrupted men who are harming others, like women and children. She kind of has like this vendetta out against these people, and she's kind of made it her mission to bring them down. And so that's exactly what we find her doing in the beginning of this book. But then quickly after, we begin to get a little bit more of a glance of the kind of life that she's living, and right as we get a taste of that, it kind of all burns to the ground pretty much, and things get really dark. We're seeing, like, immediately seeing some deaths, we're seeing some murders, we're seeing like impersonation and torture and so many vile things. And so I was not prepared for the level of dark that this book brought to the table in the beginning. But that's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. If you know anything about me, I really do enjoy exploring those types of themes and story content. And I really, while it was vile and while it kind of shocked me because it's not what I thought I had like on the table when I picked up this romantasy, I'm enjoying it, and I am enjoying the way that they are exploring various aspects of who this character is, the world that she lives in, and basically what her story is. That said, a lot of the world building is very intriguing. Like, I'm very interested in what's going on and I want to understand it fully. However, it was a little bit harder to get into. This is not like a super light and easy breezy read, that's for sure. When I picked it up, I think I pointed out that it has like a glossary of terms in the beginning, and that was very necessary because the world that she lives in, that the author has created, uses a lot of different terminology for like everyday basic things, the way that their world works. For example, there's different words for like day and year and all of those different things. So the glossary was definitely very helpful in that aspect. And while I still can't say at 50% in that I am like 100% on par and know what's going on in the world enough to feel comfortable with it, I will say that not knowing isn't detrimental. Like, it's not hurting me understanding the story, if that makes sense. Like, I wish I had more clarity on the world building itself, but not having that world building clarity isn't making it hard for me to get into the story and follow, if that makes sense. So like I said, I am almost at the 50% mark, and we are just now getting to the part where I can see the potential romantasy aspect beginning to come into play. If I was categorizing this book based on the first 50%, I would not call this a romantasy. I would call this a dark fantasy, like a dark, high, like secondary world fantasy. I am really enjoying it. I am liking the tidbits of the dragons when they come up. They haven't been very heavy. I'm expecting that as I get into the second half of this book, that'll be more applicable as well, because she's kind of switched locations from where we originally started the story. She's moved locations to another location where I think that the dragons are going to come into play more. But so far, I really like where the story has taken us. I was not able to like predict where the story was going. Now that said, I don't read a lot of like romantasy, so there's that. I do read fantasy quite heavily. Anyways, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it as a dark fantasy. And I am enjoying the characters so far. Speaking of characters, we're reading mostly from the point of view of the main character, Rave. But also there are bits and pieces here from like a secondary point of view from a young girl named Elwyn. And immediately from like the first chapter, I already kind of guessed the relationship between these two and like how they were going to interact with each other right off the bat. And at 50% through, I'm still pretty positive. Like, they haven't come out and we haven't seen how these two timelines and these two characters interact, but I'm still quite positive it's going in the direction that I originally thought it was. So there's that. That part, at least, has been a little bit predictable, but you know what? There's still time. I still have half a book. I could be completely wrong. But yeah, overall, I'm really enjoying the world. I find the main character to be, like, I don't think we would be friends, you know? But, like, I am still really curious to know more about her past and how that is coming to play into her present. And I suppose I'm intrigued about the potential love interest here. You know, romance usually isn't my favorite thing, but like, I don't hate him, and I'm very intrigued to see how their dynamic comes together. Okay, hi, hello. It has been a long time since I have updated you because this book is so very long and I read very little in December due to things. I can't quite remember where I left off with my last update of this, but I have officially finished, okay? This took me about a month and a half to read. Like I said, I was not reading much in December, so it makes sense that I was just coming like in and out of this when I could and filling in, getting some progress done with the audiobook on my rides to school. But I have finished this. And I want to lead with, this has got to be the longest, most pointless book I have ever read in my life, guys. Okay, so I believe I was like 50% last time I updated you. And we had already gone through like so many different phases of this story. Like, we had the initial setup where she's this hired assassin indebted to this group of people, and then that quickly changed and now she's in prison for murder, and that quickly changed, and then she was rescued by this man who seems to be doing all of these nice things for unknown reasons. And then that quickly changed to she's on the run and now she's in this wilderness tribe, and then that quickly changed and now she's in a city, and there was just so many different like ideas I think that the author had for this book, and some of them are really good ideas, but she couldn't pick which one she wanted to do and therefore decided to throw them all into the same book. Now, if you are a very skilled author, you could probably pull that off. I'm not saying that Sarah A. Parker is a horrible author or anything like that, so don't come at me. But what I'm saying is, I think she maybe had an idea in her head and a goal, and unfortunately did not achieve that with this book, because she started, I didn't count, but it's got to be at least 20 plot lines and subplot lines. Some are major, some are small. And by the end of this book, when I tell you that not a single one was wrapped up or resolved in any way at all, I'm not lying to you guys. It literally set up a bajillion plot lines. And at the end of this book, not one of them came full circle. We got no resolution, no end of book satisfaction at all in any way. And unfortunately, the thing that I liked the most about this book when I first went into it was the super interesting world building. Like, okay, not world building, the super interesting world. I first off think that the dragons are a pretty interesting idea. I also liked the god system, and that some people could communicate with the gods and some could not. Like, all of that was pretty interesting. But when I tell you that these characters in this book are supposed to be elves, and like not once in this entire book was that elaborated on or explained or even said, is wild. The only kind of nod that we get that these are supposed to be elves is like somewhere like this far into the book, somebody is described as having pointed ears, and that is literally it. So when I say that the world was interesting, but the author's methods of world building were terrible, that's what I mean. She didn't explain anything. We're literally just following this main character as she does this one thing and then does this other thing and then does this other thing, and we are told, hey, these cool things are going on around this person or in this world, but none of those are elaborated on or described in enough detail for you to actually understand and get a good, like, understanding of what is going on in the world and how the world operates and any of that. And the magic, you know, all of the different cities and locations we went in. It's like the author gave us just enough to be like, hey, she's here, and then like that's it. So yeah, I was frustrated. I got really frustrated. I actually, shortly after my last update is when I started feeling like, I think I'm not gonna love this, because the author just kept doing the same thing over and over again, where she kept just dropping the main character into a new setting, into a new location, and not giving us anything, okay? Also, I hate the main character. She was so frustrating. I thought in the beginning that I was gonna love her because I thought it was setting up like this tortured soul, you know, who has to be kind of off-putting. She's had to build herself up to be really strong, despite her life circumstances, and I like those kind of characters, and I even really like morally gray type characters. That's not who we got. We got a very immature, bloodthirsty, bad girl TM, like, I'm gonna be a bitch and be mean to everybody I ever meet, even those who go out of their way to keep me safe and help me when I'm in need. Like, she was terrible. She was terrible even to the love interest in this book, and he was like a saint. It was wild. I don't know. Unfortunately, I didn't like their dynamic. I think that this idea done a different way could be really, really interesting. I think that the romance between these two characters had no payoff. None. Because he was obsessed with her. His only personality trait, actually, was that he was obsessed with her. And she was literally terrible to him the entire time and kept going in her brain. She was either, I'm gonna murder you and kill you, or you're really hot. There was no in between. It was one or the other. She either wanted to sleep with him or slit his throat. There was no middle ground there. And yeah, I didn't love that. And so that relationship didn't feel satisfying to me, even when they did eventually towards the very end, start coming together. And then we got some reveals about her past, because she has like amnesia. It's the amnesia trope. She can't remember who she was and how she knows this guy, even though it's obvious that this guy knows her. She can't remember how. And so we got one like reveal towards the end, which I had guessed probably 200 pages previously, and that is literally it. So every single question that you're asking yourself as you're reading this, every single situation that you'd love to know more about and want to see kind of how it plays out and how it pays off, forget that, because you are not going to get that at the end of this book, literally. So, I can appreciate a cliffhanger. I really can. I did not love how this book ended. It gave you literally nothing. Literally nothing. So it's no surprise probably to you hearing that how I'm going to rate this book. And if you're wondering whether this book is going to survive the trials here, maybe don't be surprised when it doesn't. But let's go through how I'm actually rating this book. So for the hook, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. And it's only getting as high of a score as 2 is because I was actually pretty intrigued and interested going in. And in the beginning, I loved the setup of it. I thought this was going to be a book I was going to end up really enjoying. And that initial phases where we're like following her as she's doing assassin shit and all of that, that then immediately gets thrown into the trash and we never revisit that ever again. That part I really liked. So I'm giving it a 2 for that. And then for writing, I'm giving it a 2 out of 5. I don't think the author is necessarily a bad writer. I can see what she was trying to do, but when I say that she is literally the most verbose writer, unnecessarily verbose writer ever, that's not a joke. This book is almost 700 pages, okay? And why is it 700 pages? That was so unnecessary, and I feel like the author should have edited this down so much. Like, where were her editors to tell her, hey, maybe cut down all of this excessive explanation of like random emotions and other things that don't matter, that we don't care about. We don't need to hear that every time, but literally pages and paragraphs were just of like random excessive description of those kinds of things. But I don't know. I think she just needed an editor. Okay, so 2 out of 5 for writing. For characters, I'm giving it a 1 out of 5. I did not love anybody in this book. I thought one character was really interesting. It's a side character, actually, and I wanted to follow her a little bit more. We got a little bit of her, but she's the only one that I liked because the main character, as I've said, was unbearable. The love interest was super one-dimensional. Like I said, his only personality trait was that he was obsessed with her and that he was, kind of a good king, and yeah, 1 out of 5 for that. Atmosphere, 3 out of 5. This is the highest rating this book is going to get in any of these tiers because the idea of the world was so cool. I wanted more of that. I craved more of that, and I didn't get it, but like in this book the dragons are super interesting, and this is not like I don't think this is any kind of spoiler or anything like that, but there's dragons, and in this world a dragon, when they die, they kind of like calcify. Well, first they like shoot themselves up into the air instead of like dying and rotting on the ground. They'll shoot themselves up into space and kind of calcify there and become a moon that circles the planet, which is what the title is referencing when it said when the moon hatched. But like that was really interesting to me. Those kinds of details I think could be so cool if explored in a different way. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe even, I'm thinking about it, maybe 3 is a little bit too generous, but there was parts of this book where I was really enjoying it and wanted to know more, and unfortunately we didn't get that. And then the impact of this book is 1. Like 1 out of 5. I don't even know what else I could say about it other than there's no emotional payoffs. There is not a single like narrative circle, like full circle. We go nowhere. We end with every single question you start with and build up in the beginning, you still have at the end of the book. Not a single thing is answered. Yeah, in that way, I can't. I was frustrated when I put this book down. Let me say that I sat this book out despite how long it was, and despite me, this was basically the only thing I was reading in December besides another book, but I kept writing this one out because I thought for sure something at the end was going to make this worth it. Like for sure the author was going to give us something to make us feel satisfied when we came out of this read, and that didn't happen. So I was a little frustrated that I did, and I should have DNF'd. I should have DNF'd when I first got that little tinkling, that little whisper in the back of my brain, like, hey, this book maybe isn't something you're gonna love. I should have DNF'd, but I didn't. So that means that we have our final score for this book, which is only 9 out of 25 points. That means that When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, not a surprise to you if you're watching, I'm sure, is being slashed, and it will not get to live on my final shelf. Now, we have officially gotten the 5 books that I wanted to read in the first episode of the final shelf. And I know I am taking full responsibility that this episode took far longer to film and read through these books than I had initially planned. Like literally it's taken so long, and I apologize for that. That is definitely all on me. I simply got overwhelmed with college life, mom life, things going on in my personal life, and I didn't reach for the books that I had set aside for the final shelf like I drew for this as much as I probably should have to be able to finish it much sooner. So that is going to be a priority in the next episode for sure. So just know that going forward, these episodes should not take as long to come out as this one did, okay? But that means that we've gotten through the 5, and it is now time to do our wrap up, to do our look back. So let's see where we are left after episode 1. All right, here are our 5 contestants that I read in this episode. We are going to go from this way to this way, even though that's in the opposite order that we pulled them. But we have The Moon is Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This one gets slashed. We also read The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind, and this one gets slashed. I pulled Pretty Little Liars by Sarah Shepard and decided that this one was going to be a soft DNF, and I added it back into the jar. So it does not join the final shelf, but it does have an opportunity to eventually in the future. We read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, and What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown, which both of these survived the trials, and they will be joining. They are our first official members of the final shelf. That means that we have 2 survivors, 2 books that got slashed and are being unhauled, and 1 that is rejoining the jar and pool of contestants for a future round. So here's what the shelf looks like now that we have added our final shelf reads throughout this episode to all of the other books that I have added to the shelf since starting this project. If you want to hear my thoughts on any of the other books that I haven't talked about in this episode, they are all covered on various reading vlogs on my channel, so be sure to go check those out. But otherwise, here is the overview of all of the actual space that we still have left on this shelf. So not much longer, and I think we might be able to fill it. And that officially brings us to the end of episode 1 of the final shelf. I hope that you enjoyed this and had a good time going through this process for me. I know that I loved doing this, and I can't wait to do more of these episodes in 2026. If you did enjoy it, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a like to let me know that you are loving it and waiting for the next episode, and you have yourself a lovely rest of your day or night or whatever it is, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time.